All right, happy Wednesday and welcome to the second session of our WeWork Labs Business Growth Bootcamp. Our topic today is Sales for Founders, Building a Scalable Sales Operating System. For those of you who are new to us, this event is hosted by WeWork Labs, WeWork's platform for startups and small businesses. And we provide mentoring, discounts, access to a global network, and professional development through virtual programs such as this one for free to all WeWork members. You can learn more about us at we.co/labs. A quick note on session logistics today. We'd like to encourage all of you to share any and all questions that might come up at any time through the Q&A function that you can find at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And of course, also use the chat to introduce yourselves, share your social media profiles if you'd like to do some networking, or ask any and other questions that come up. We will leave some time at the end of the session to have James answer all of your questions. We are very excited to be partnering with DC Startup Week in putting on Business Growth Bootcamp. And I would now like to hand over to Seema Alexander, the founder of Disruptive.ceo, who kicked us off with our very first session last week. We got great feedback. So thank you so much again, Seema, for sharing all your wisdom last week. And I know you'll share more about DC Startup Week now and also introduce today's speaker.
Absolutely. Stephanie, we're so excited to partner with WeWork Labs. Had a great kickoff last week, and we have 3 additional speakers that we think are going to add a lot of value to your community. Just a quick note on DC Startup Week. It's an annual 5-day conference. It's the largest entrepreneurial community in Washington, D.C. in the metropolitan area. The conference has over 100 experts and founder workshops and talks, networking sessions, happy hours, pitch competitions, and more. This year for DC Startup Week 2021, it's going to be held on October 18th to the 22nd, and it'll be a hybrid event. So we're going to have both virtual and in-person passes. So anyone can attend no matter where you are in the world, and we highly encourage it because there's going to be a lot of great content, regardless of where you live. To learn more and visit and learn more and register, you can go to www.dcstartupweek.org. And now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing an amazing guru in sales and a friend and somebody I've actually worked with in a company, so I can advocate for who he is and what he does and how well he does it. James Whitman, he's the CEO of Growth Guideposts. He draws on a long career, long because you're so old. 8 years in management consulting at Leidos and extremely successful 15-year tenure helping to build commercial function at corporate executive board, and has a lot of experience in SaaS, government contracting, fintech, ed tech, tech-enabled services, nonprofits, and social enterprises. Today he's going to be sharing with you a scalable commercial operating system, and really demystifying a lot of the myths on this big black box of sales. So I'm excited for you to join James in this series, and I'll let you take it from here.
Fabulous, Seema. Thanks so much, and really delighted to be part of this. I've had the opportunity to work inside the WeWork community for a while in different contexts, and have really enjoyed the energy, and have been involved in DC Startup for a year or two now. So this is great coming together of those two. This afternoon, we'll be talking about this question of sales and commercial systems. Now, I'll use the term sales and commercial sort of interchangeably. Sales certainly is the initial sale, but the notion that you're going to build relationships with clients and that you can really have a system to achieve that is really the focus for today. We'll be discussing kind of what it means to engage as a founder and really dig in on this question of commercialization. A little bit about me. I have been selling so much of my career and in many ways across my whole life with paper routes and selling papers and lemonade stands. Is not a picture of me, but certainly sort of some selling in my DNA. Early in my career, I was involved in transition of the former Soviet Union into the current state, and worked in Siberia and supported Carrier air conditioning among other clients. So helping sell air conditioners in Siberia. But really a key sort of transitional moment in my career was my time at Corporate Executive Board, where we sort of develop the initial challenger research and work around that. And I learned from some of the really the most gifted sales commercial professionals in the world, both as a salesperson, practitioner, but also selling and representing a very sophisticated sales effectiveness offering. So I was both, living on both sides of that equation. Spent 15 years there, really transformative experience for me personally, career-wise, and in many ways. And since that time, I've really focused my energy on helping earlier stage companies adapt some of those great commercial lessons and really focus on impact-based organizations. Take that and figure out how to replicate that selling motion in much smaller organizations at earlier stages. I have a really talented, diverse team of leaders that I work really close with to deliver projects, and we've got a fantastic network that helps organizations. It's really about understanding where you are in the commercial journey, and then starting to build the systems like any other process within the company to build. It's interesting. Sales is a strange corporate function. You will see or find that in most MBA programs, there is not a module or a class or a discipline, a major in sales, despite the fact that it becomes a major capability in so many organizations. I engaged with a professor at the American University, and I think he summed it up. I was sort of pitching a class for the MBA program on professional selling, and his perspective I thought was really clear that sales is definitely a misunderstood discipline. I think many professionals would look at it and make a decision that this isn't something they want to be involved in. And that's not to say everyone takes a sales or should take a sales career path. If you are leading a company, if you're in general management, I think it's absolutely critical that you understand the function deeply, that you engage with it in many ways, that you have your hands on it and in it in very meaningful ways. This sort of misunderstanding of professional sales starts from where we see a lot of popular media, great characters from great films, that salespeople are often portrayed as these heroes or anti-heroes or kind of villainous characters. And I think we all interact with salespeople and sometimes have bad experiences that has us think about that for our own organizations. The reality is, you are selling, you are running your companies, you have put a tremendous amount of your own personal energy and reputation into this. You need to be the best salesperson for your organization, both to represent it, but also start to build a system around it. I don't know if folks know Tyler from Clever. I highly encourage you to take a look. He's got a great hour-long talk on the Y Combinator site about what selling meant for him early on in their business and the amount of hands-on energy he put into it. And it's really the punchline of, it's a very gritty, very substantive, hands-on kind of discipline that you as a CEO should be doing a lot of early on. And as you figure out your product and figure out your market dynamics and figure out what I call the selling system, the set of activities and processes and metrics that you can use to track how well this activity is going, you need to be very hands-on in that. And Tyler's a great example of that. And he tells some really fantastic stories. So have a listen to that. And then there's just this great network of professional companies that help in this space. In many ways, this kind of capability will come in time. But the outset is, how do you start learning what's going on with the market and bringing that and creating some patterns. First concept I'm going to talk about is what I call the 50 percentile test. We often will have a offering, the SaaS offering or services that we think is ready, that we feel good about, and we want to go look and find the best, most agile, most effective, the best presence salesperson. And those are the hard ones to find. Those are the ones that often are in the great role and are quite situated, and quite frankly, they're very expensive salespeople to hire. And what I encourage CEOs to do is think about, how am I going to build an offering in a motion of interaction with clients, potential clients, that an average performer can be successful in. Build to that, and that's then when you can start to do that and say, okay, we're going to try to hire above average. We're going to try to hire 10th percentile or 20 or top percentile performers, of course, but we need to build a system that an average performer can be successful in, and that takes a lot of structure and thinking about it, and also a lot of that hands-on dynamic. As CEOs, we often feel really great about our offerings. I'm going to ask for something in the chat if anyone enjoys this product. Nutella. It's kind of a fantastic European hazelnut chocolate spread. I was with some colleagues and we were talking about things selling themselves, and it was basically some pushback from a CEO. Oh, my product's fantastic. It will sell itself. We don't need sales investment. And we kind of ideated on what's something that doesn't take a lot of selling, that people come back to pretty readily. And my submission for that was Nutella. It's fantastic, great, delicious product. And then we did a little tiny bit of research. Spent a great deal of money on advertising, about $20 million a year, selling this product that would seemingly sell itself. So keep that in mind. Yeah, exactly. Everyone loves Nutella. Keep that in mind as you think about your product. That you're going to need to have a mechanism where you're talking to your buyers in a consistent way. Think about it in the same way that you think about product development and your journey. If you're pursuing outside funding for your business, that there are distinct stages, there are indicators, there are investments, and there are processes that you bring to each one of those, and a tremendous amount of discipline. Bring that same kind of discipline and thoughtfulness in structure to the client engagement process, to the commercial process, to the sales process. And at Growth Guidepost, we have lined up these stages as kind of where you should be, that as you are in a beta mode, you're ultimately product testing your product with your client, and you may start to see some cash flow starting to happen from the product. And then as you get to an MVP, this is where you're having your first deals and start thinking about what patterns emerge from those. And then hopefully your revenue is now starting to fund you, and then you move on. And it's really not until you feel like you have a meaningful product that you're starting to scale the sales hires. But at that point, you may very well be leading these activities yourselves. One of the things that we do, again, at Growth Guidepost, is think about where you are on each one of these journeys and making sure that you've got the right set of sales tools and sales capabilities for that stage of growth, and getting those pieces right. This commercial question encompasses a lot. I'm focusing, a lot of my work tends to be focused on the sales component, the sales and the account management component, which situates around the go-to-market plan and meeting prep activities that you and your reps will do. The real mechanics of how do I get calls, how do I get briefs scheduled with my prospective customers, and do that in a structured way that I can really start be predictive of what volume is coming in sales based on top level activity. Really just this set of activities around how do I execute meetings effectively that I both advance individual sales cycles as well as understand the broader market dynamics. And that's really a key piece of this exercise. You may have seen this in terms of matching up your approach, field sales, inside sales, or marketing against the addressable market and the size of your average cost. So top of this, if you've got millions of potential customers and a kind of price point around $100, you have a marketing driven strategy. If on the other end of the spectrum, you've got a handful of clients, you can only sell to Fortune 100 or to top banks, and you've got a price point in the hundreds of thousands or millions, you're in a field sales game. And the cost equation, the unit costs are are dramatically different. It's a great way to start thinking about where you make the transition between your marketing strategy, adding an inside sales capability, and then really adding kind of most expensive field sales capabilities. So the second piece of kind of percentile test is the voice of the market. And what that means to me and to us is, are you hearing on a consistent basis information that's informing your strategy? So it's the common understanding within your organization. Does everyone hear the same thing and draw the same major conclusions? Does product hear that same as marketing, as the sales team, as you do in leadership? And are you making decisions that are based on broad patterns, not just the last call that you were on, anecdotal dynamic that happens all too often with commercial interactions? So a system that creates a common understanding of market preferences, and you integrate that into your efforts. The core of this is a really kind of basic set of dynamics around, how do you get to a deep understanding of your client so that you can listen more closely, and a reflection, observation, validation loop where you're thinking about your prospect, you're observing them in nature, and then you're validating that with data and creating a little bit of a system around that. And I'll show you some examples of what that system looks like. And then if you use that information in your product design, so that your roadmap, you can say with some degree of confidence, is reflective of where your clients want to take you. The core of that reflection is a truly reflective organization. It's an exercise, sitting down for 10 or 15 minutes and really imagining the life, the day in the life of one of your prospects. And then starting to coalesce that into a meaningful way so that when you start having conversations, you're bringing that to bear. Many of you are deeply steeped in the terrain where you're operating. You may be former or current practitioners within the discipline. You can leverage that tremendously to inform your own, but important, even if you are a practitioner, to reflect out and see, are you a unique practitioner or are you a typical practitioner, and kind of bring that to bear as you start this exercise. Observe your clients. How do they actually behave? Watch them in the field. See how close you can get to them, and ask them really, really open-ended anthropological questions. And there's great work around this, and design thinking space, and all the idea work of how to really understand how people use our products, interact with them. How do competing offerings and other offerings in sort of adjacent spaces touch and inform how people use, and really bring that thinking, that critical assessment to everything, to your collateral design, to the emails you send to prospects, and to the words you say when you have them on the phone. And the other piece of this sort of deep understanding of prospect is to sell to real people, and to use personas that you develop are real individuals, and really anchor your thinking on that. And again, imagine your prospects in the field. I think this comes from some of the mobilizer work out of Gartner, is the notion that there are different individuals within the organization that you're selling to, and you need to navigate those complex sales cycles. So preparation. One of the things that I find really most fascinating is that the characteristics of absolute top sales performers, of what they do differently than average sales performers, is all about prep. So how much research and understanding do you walk into the call with? How much of a hypothesis have you brought to bear to bring that into your discussion? That's what makes a great salesperson. That's what should make a great CEO who is leading commercial conversations. This is an example of a tool that I use and we've adapted for use in a lot of different organizations. Structurally, this can be, and ideally is integrated into your Salesforce, your HubSpot instance, or is integrated in some way into the kind of information architecture of your organization, or it can be an email. And it's really a question of how do you organize information, but really fundamentally bringing key questions to bear. So what I have here is, category. Where am I in a commercial relationship? So this hypothetical, it's an established client, and I'm trying to expand my relationship there. A land and expand is what you hear it called. What's the deal stage? Early discovery. I just was introduced to this person in the organization. I'm learning, and knowing where you are in the cycle is absolutely critical. And then over time, starting to be able to draw out, here are the natural steps that happen. Here's where I can inflect the natural steps. Here's where I can't and where I run into walls. Understanding that dynamic. The next is a hypothesis. Walk in the door with a vantage point of what the situation your potential client is likely facing. And also be prepared for your hypothesis to be wrong, but it informs and creates a certain amount of awareness of where you are in that journey. The next, so in this case, I knew the client had an incumbent provider already in place. I thought my objection would really be around high switching costs. So I walked in the door around. I also knew that they had recently gone through an acquisition, fast growth. Again, distracted was the concern I had walking into this conversation. I knew a tiny bit about the executive reporting to the head of HR, a 4-person recruiting team. Now I'm really starting to get a feel for the individual. And the wonderful thing about current reality is LinkedIn gives us such deep understanding of the individuals, their backgrounds, many cases their teams and their perspectives, their writings, that we can really walk in the door with a really great understanding of each person we're meeting with. Work, key changes, a little bit of a guess, thinking that they would be busy with their acquisition integration. And then, what am I going to do? What's my game plan? I'm going to start with an enterprise offer, engage interest in the services. I have kind of a set of plays and pathways that I'm queued up to do, but again, ready to pivot. So I walk in the door with something like this. I then have an hour-long meeting or 30-minute meeting. I change. I recapture my notes. Very often, a great way to do this is to have kind of a running notes series. Create a simple text document somewhere in Evernote or another tool, and be able to pull that up as you have new conversations with an individual. So for this, I actually walked in. My hypothesis was a little bit off. They're actually dissatisfied with the current solution and actively looking for alternatives. Now I know that price is a key driver, and I have to meet certain functionality requirements. And then on the business environment, acquisition is not creating much impact on the team. They're kind of isolated from it, but they have other challenges around employment branding. So I had enough clarity about what was going on. So when I started the conversation, I was able to reflect and use that information I had from my prep work in the discussion, demonstrate that I had taken the care and consideration to respect their time and really understand what was going on in their business as much as possible. And that really kind of put the conversation on a great path. And then I capture information about what's going to happen next. An RFP is coming. Who am I going to follow up with? What information am I going to provide? And what I'm trying to do here in that follow-up is create we used to call a continuous conversation. I obviously want to have a fast sales cycle. I want this person to join on the spot and be a client right away so I can support them and bring them the value that my product brings. But I recognize that in many cases, and as I learn my way around any particular space, I'm going to kind of have a map, that architecture of the sales cycle that's going to start to emerge. I need to navigate along that and make sure that at each stage I'm earning the right for the next stage. You can often think about, I want to close a call, I close a deal, but closing may not be signing a contract. Closing may be earning another discussion. Closing may be a commitment from a prospect to review some content or to talk to somebody in your network. But it's really like establishing an open discussion, but that one that creates ongoing dialogue and that continuous conversation. A big part of this was really what I'd call the core of the system, is really quite simple. The where it gets complex is the implementation of it in terms of doing it yourself and getting your teams and other individuals on the team to do it. But maintaining that discipline from the start, that you can start to capture anecdotal notes-based feedback and have a kind of a template for how information is captured there. Someone can go back through and start to say, across a dozen calls, people have mentioned challenges with a competing platform or a missing functionality that you can start to mine. Use your CRM, capture information there, look for patterns, be disciplined, and connect it with a flow of a sales cycle. That email thank you note that goes out really quickly and includes some substantive content, or addresses an objection that wasn't answered on the call, or unpacks a challenge that someone's facing. And really importantly, what's going to happen next? Have you scheduled another meeting? Capturing that on the spot versus creating another to-do for yourself. Schedule a meeting with Stephanie versus, hey Stephanie, can we schedule some time right now? It's just an efficiency question. And a lot of this is, how do you get, do this once, but then figure out how to do it at scale and really move the thing down the field. So the kind of moving the ball down the field, the cadencing question. Are you measuring on a consistent basis? Are you improving those metrics as you go along? What that means is starting from the core physics of your business. I think a lot of folks spend time budgeting, laying out sales goals, and certainly targets on sprint productivity and time to have product features delivered. Really important to do the same kind of core break-even kind of math around activity targets. So let me break this down a little bit. Reasonably straightforward, but I think a pretty cool way of thinking about things. What's your sales goal? Okay, I have promised to the street that I'm going to deliver $1.5 million in this year. My price point is a known commodity. And then I go into the market and I start seeing how well my sales calls join. Across my career, I've sold fantastic products that were perfectly market aligned, that had really tremendous value propositions and were kind of at the right place at the right time. And we have touched 25, 30% conversion rate. So, a quarter or a third of the people who we meet with say, yes, I'd like to be one of your clients. Then I've sold things that run at 3 and 6% conversion rate. Much less fun to sell the low conversion rate offerings. But in general, sort of on average over an extended period, 10 to 15% is often where you'll land. But again, you'll have to get in the market and start to see how things perform at scale once you've completed 10 meetings, 20 meetings, 50 meetings, 100 meetings, and start to see how that breaks out and how you can start to inflect that. So this is the math on that. I've got this is a SaaS offering, $1.5 million sales goal, $15K price point. Great. I know how many units I need to sell. I need to sell 100 of them, but I'm only going to convert 20%. So 1 in 5 of my meetings are going to become a member. So in order to hit my $1.5 million goal, I have to knock out 500 meetings. 500 meetings. How many meetings can I do in a week? Wow, that's a heck of a lot. So I'd say, for a professional salesperson, 200, 250, 300, 350 at the top end in a year, meetings in a year is sort of starting to get to capacity if you're assuming kind of a reasonably complex offering with a sales cycle that has multiple steps and follow-up and negotiations, and procurement discussions, that all those activities suddenly consume the year. I find this really, really useful to start breaking down, like, how are we going to invest in a way that allows us to get those 500 meetings that will convert at 20%, that will get us to our sales goal. And if you don't get this activity and the cadence around that, we're at the first quarter, we're at the second quarter, we're at the first week of the month, and we are, what percentage of our way to the pace setting goal to start getting those meetings. And I have enough good bodies on the field to knock those down. Now can with confidence say, yes, we are on target to get to our sales goal. All too often, people will pen in big sales goals and know the price point, but not do this math towards the activity. So I encourage you to do that and really understand the core physics of your business. The other part of it is that pace setting that happens on an ongoing basis. Daily metrics management. And daily is it's a big frequent number, but having your pulse on what's going on across the week. If you have a team that is potentially scheduling meetings for you or out in the field conducting client conversations, you want to know what's going on. You want to have those pace settings. So are you qualifying? Are you pursuing? Are you scheduling at the right rate and bringing that together and having a vantage point on what are the team dynamics? What's going on? Like where are the handoffs going on internally? And then what are the patterns that are starting to emerge? What are we learning about our prospects in the course of these conversations? And the patterns are really all about good HubSpot Salesforce tracking and capturing some key metrics that start to inform how you're working. On the meeting scheduling front, this is a way of thinking about this journey. SDRs, PDRs, builders, lots of different names for help in this area. At the beginning of your efforts to schedule meetings at volume, you're going to be tapping into your personal network, moving out a bit further in your network, and then starting to do direct cold outreach. I don't think you should hire a single salesperson in your organization before you've cold called and scheduled a half a dozen different prospects. How are you going to expect a salesperson who is a hire, who's new to your company, who doesn't have anywhere the depth that you do as CEO, to persuade people to spend time with your organization without really having the messaging honed and the dynamics of those conversations honed, and you as the founders are really best positioned to do that. It also gives you a tremendous amount of credibility to be able to say to a salesperson, oh yeah, here's how I do it. And maybe demonstrate the magic trick of let me get a CEO, let me get a prospect on the phone and have a discussion. It's a little bit terrifying if you haven't done that before, but it's one of these sort of without a net activities that you really should get comfortable with, and it's very empowering once you start doing it. You start bringing your message to audiences that are kind of well suited, and you do that with enough energy. From there, it's time. I'm going to bring in a junior person who starts to create some leverage, prospecting, list building, running the marketing campaigns, and kind of moving some of the data and the message and the sorting is a great way to leverage a junior person. Don't just say, "Hey, I'm recent college grad who doesn't know anything about my business. You seem energetic. Go get me 50 meetings a month." Good luck. That is not a recipe for success. And in a month or two, you'll be complaining about how your salesperson is just ineffective. Use the person reasonably and have kind of reasonable expectations what they can achieve. At that point, you've got sort of a branching decision. You either say, I'm going to outsource this function. I'm going to turn to one of a number of different firms that provide these capabilities as a service. A little bit more expensive path, but definitely faster time to impact. Or I start building it myself. And as you do that, and I spend a lot of time with clients as they build SDR teams, thinking about how do I make my organization a destination of choice, with high employment value proposition, because you're competing with lots of other organizations for the best talent of kind of earlier tenured folks who are kind of willing and eager to get into a sales career, and what are you going to offer them in terms of career development and career advancement? So I want to wrap with some thoughts from a CEO I've done a little bit of work with the DC area from Sales Intel. Some of you may know, super smart guy. And he had actually posted this about a year ago after he hired his first VP of sales. And he's a serial entrepreneur. He started many companies, and it's clear that he's learned a lot in this journey. So first off, he personally led the efforts for a year to get it going, and then he followed I think it's Y Combinator instructions of firing yourself as salesperson or in a certain function at when the time is right. Made very significant investments in growth, in training, and timed them at the right time for fit. Fundamentally, you need a good product to sell, and that is at the core. And then finally, set realistic goals. You want to motivate your team, you want to drive them, you want to push them, but you don't want to discourage, break them, and get your culture right. And that's a complex question for another day. But the organizational culture, the sales culture, is something that you can build from the very beginning. So I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much, James, for an extremely valuable session packed with lots of great advice on all things sales. And for everyone who's interested in learning more about sales, we actually have a 10-week Sales Academy program coming up this fall that we run simultaneously in 3 regions. You can learn all about it on the VWork Labs program page that I shared earlier in the chat. For everyone who signed up for all of Business Growth Bootcamp, we still have 3 more sessions coming up. We'll actually meet again next week, same time, same place. You should have a calendar invite if you signed up for the program. And next week, we will learn all about the Entrepreneurial Operating System, EOS. I actually don't know what that is yet, so I'm very much looking forward to that. Seema, thank you for being here again and for representing Disruptive.co CEO and DC Startup Week. Thank you again, James, for being with us today. Hope to have you back on our virtual stage sometime soon. Have a great rest of your day, everyone. And in case you missed it, James put together a PDF summary of this session that you can find at growthguidepost.com/welcome. Thank you, everyone. Bye.